So that's Sade. That's the author. That's the author. Please don't ask me what I have on my head because I am channeling my inner goddess with this wig because of this book.
I love it. I love it. I love the colors just popping on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Wait, let me
So,
just get Kanto.
okay, go get your brother. So she's gonna get her twin brother. So those are my nieces. This is my niece Zoe joining from Nigeria. I sent her a copy of the book. That's Neria. That's Essay. Essay also read the book. Uh,
Amazing.
Kanye is bringing her twin. So those are 14. The twins are 14. Essay is 13. Zoe is 13. Essay, you're 13, right?
And 12.
12. Oh, sorry. 12. Then Zoe is 13. Zoe,
Perfect. Covering all the perfect age groups.
yeah, Zoe joined from Nigeria. She's my niece and my goddaughter too.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
welcome. So, everybody, this is Sade Lapite.
yes. Hi. Lovely to meet everybody.
So
Lovely to
Shade
join
and
you
Hi,
I
today.
Daddy.
like to say,
Hi.
come a long way. We connected a very long time ago. She actually reviewed my book, and I reached out to her to say thank you. And when I asked for a photo of her holding my book, she was kind enough to send me a photo, and I used in promoting my book. That book went on, at least we sold out the first 1,000 copies, and then we have reprinted with a different cover. So I want to say
I
thank
love it.
you.
Yeah.
As Shade, I saw that Shade had written a book. Okay, in Nigeria they say one
Yes.
son deserves another. So I'm
This
like,
is it. What goes around, coming around and around. I love
yeah.
it.
So we've come full circle. We have Shade
Yes.
here. So I just want to say, well, I don't waste time reading the author's bio because I always post the author's bio when I post the flyers. So
Yes.
go read that so that we might. So thank you for this book.
Oh no, thank you for requesting
Yeah.
it.
So thank you. So first of all, I would say young adult fantasy is not is not my genre. Like it's not
Mm,
my thing. So it was good that after so many years, I had to bring myself back to read, to read this book. I tried,
mm,
many times, oh, let me get into this story. Let me get. So I still struggled with it.
mm.
But I was so happy that I brought in the young people. Hold on. Just a minute, please. Uh, um, and okay, the boys don't want to come. It's fine. They don't want to
Oh,
join. It's fine. It's
that's
okay.
okay.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Saturday morning.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a teenager, I wasn't really, I think, like I was saying to them earlier, I think I'm the only person who hasn't seen Harry Potter.
Mhm.
I haven't seen Harry Potter, I haven't seen Lord of the Rings. I think I saw um uh, was it Lord of the Rings? I think I said I saw 2 years ago. Then what was that popular one with the dragon that everybody was watching?
How to
Game of
Train Your Dragon?
Thrones.
No, not the no no no. There was
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Yes, I think I'm the only
Oh.
person also who hasn't seen that. So fantasy for me as a teenager, I was into cowboys. So I was reading about cowboys. Yeah,
Uh,
it's good that we have this and that the main character is African, and unlike the stories we see where all the black people have to die off before the story ends, I'm happy it's very different. So
mm,
let's start with your inspiration for the book because the teenagers are here to ask questions.
okay.
We are here to learn. I mean, we learned about the
Yes.
spider this morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Absolutely. So in terms, I mean, of the inspiration, so I wrote the book for there's an event that happens every year called National Novel Writing Month. So
Okay.
every November, there's this challenge across the globe where people try to write 50,000 words in 1 month because many people think that I've got a book in me, I've got a novel, I just need the opportunity to get it out. And that month is like your opportunity to be like, right, you've got 30 days to try to write 50,000 words. Every spare second you've got, you should be writing, right? So I was like, right, I try to do the challenge every year and I never managed to complete it. So each year I try to think of, okay, I need a story, something that I can work with that is going to allow me to write 50,000 words in 30 days. And so the year that I wrote the first draft of this one, I thought, right, if you had, say, the Elizabeth I and her mother was Anne Boleyn, who was murdered by, well, executed by the King of England. And
Okay.
then what impact would that have on the child? And would that child, how would people feel about that child then taking the throne at some point? So I just played around with that idea, and that became the first version of the novel. So it was very, it was a white character, it was set in England, it was very, very different. And then over the following years, because I wrote the first draft in 2008, I would just bring it back out again and be like, what if this happened? Or what if this happened? Or what if? And then at some point I thought, why is this character white? And why are all the characters in this book white? And it was very much the fact that most of the books that I was reading that had adventure in them, that had fantasy and that kind of sense to them, were all white characters. So I felt like it hadn't occurred to me, or I didn't know how to write a black character into that world. And so once I thought, right, if I make the main characters black, are they black? Are they a black royal family in England? Like that doesn't make sense. Or it can make sense. A better writer could figure out how to make that make sense. But I thought, okay, let's change the setting of this story. So I moved it to like sort of a fantasy West Africa setting, and that's how it came about.
Okay. Fantastic. And I was just thinking, why a girl and why not a boy?
Oh, I felt like all the books growing up, where anybody was doing anything interesting were all boys, right? It's like all, Knight Rider was a boy, like, all that, just if you got to ride a horse, you get to shoot a gun, you got to do something interesting, you were probably a guy. And it was so rare that there was a girl, a female, as the main character, and let alone a black female. So it was always going to be a girl.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this and and I feel that this book, in a subtle way, was questioning patriarchy in the
Mm.
sense that she was the next of kin. Is we know that boys are usually the next of kin.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that. But I think where I said I was going to ask is the part where I was confused was her mother being executed by her father based on a rumor.
Mm.
But I'm going to get to that. So I want
Yeah.
floor for every other person to start to ask questions. Okay, Tosin, I see your hands up. Please, the rest of you, if you want to ask questions, use that button at the bottom, the raise hand button. Can you all see it? Use that. Okay. Tosin, please.
Hi, Sade.
Hi.
Thank you for your book. My question is, or has to do with what I kind of struggled with the book, which was the theme of the fact that there is this universal deity that is worshipped all around the different regions of the land, and she is a goddess, um, a feminine, a divine feminine, but somehow, it's still there's still this patriarchal corruption
Mm.
that seems entrenched. And so I was just wondering about the contradiction of that. How is it that these people deify a feminine goddess, but still are wrapped up in the subjugation
Mm.
of the women folk in the land? Well, except for in the north, of which, circumstances kind of forced them
Mm.
to allow for more expression from the women.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I think that I was just sort of channeling my own questions about just, creation and, a creator in terms of even for Christianity, right? It's like so women that it's like women are lauded in some ways in that we are the life givers, and if you're Catholic, then you honor the Virgin Mary, and there's lots of things that make us feel like women are important and special in terms of humanity. But yet we live in a world that is patriarchal in every single country, right? Across almost every culture, that somehow, that despite us having just some kind of status, we're also supposed to follow and follow in a way that so often is sort of corrupted. So I just wonder about that sort of, it feels like a contradiction to me in terms of the world that we live in, that in some ways that we have so many religions that seem to honor women, but yet in in actual fact, women are so often treated as second-class citizens, and we don't really have an answer for that. And the book doesn't have an answer for that. That where is the goddess? Why is, how can we pray to a goddess and yet women are treated this way? But I feel like in this world, that in real life, we do many things that, in terms of religion, say that pay lip service to women, but don't actually treat women well. So I wanted to reflect that a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shadi. Essie, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I had a question. Like, there is this, like her uncle actually, this was like, there was this, the prime minister actually ended up being her uncle. I was just gonna ask, like, why did why did he die before he could, like, explain everything?
Okay, good question. So I think that he tried to explain a lot of the reasons for why he did the things that he did was sort of like to do, I guess, with his own sense of self-worth, like his self-esteem, that he felt like he should be, well, he wasn't loved the way that he wanted to be loved. And he felt like it was like, I don't know, it sort of became twisted in his head and in his heart in terms of how he reached out for that recognition. So he didn't get so he explained it a bit, but really there's no good explanation for the things that he did. And I think sometimes when people do, in fact, often when people do terrible things, the reasoning that makes sense to them wouldn't make sense to anybody else. So even if he sat there for like, I feel like a whole day to explain, okay, these are the reasons why I did all the things that I did. It's like that would still not be a reasonable explanation for, for killing people. So I had him say a little bit of it, and then people can sort of piece together the rest, because I wanted a bit of mystery there as well. But also I just think that sometimes when you put a villain on the stand and you're like, why have you done the things you've done? No explanation is sufficient to justify the behavior, I think.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Does anyone have any more questions? Kanye, you look like you want to say something. Zoe? Okay, Kanye, go ahead, ask.
So I know you said you started your first draft in 2008. So like how many drafts do you usually have to do like in order to like create a book? Like can you do as many as you want or
Well, this is a great question, because this is my first book, so I don't know. I have lots of writer friends, and I think everybody is different in terms of how many drafts they do. Because I wrote the first book, I was just did it for myself. So I wrote it, and maybe every year, every 2 years or whatever, I do another draft of it. Like over the next sort of 10 to 12 years or whatever, I was just playing around with it. So that was a lot of drafts already. Like it moved continents, everything, so many things changed about it. But then once I got my book deal, so once I had an agent and I was then well, once I had an agent, we spent 1 year redrafting it, and we probably did maybe 2 or 3 drafts that year. And then once the book had been sold to a publishing company, we did, I don't know how many drafts, I would say 6 to 8 drafts of it. So we redrafted it so many times, like there's so many versions of it. But again, I don't think that's the case for, again, it was my first book, so I'm still learning that kind of thing. There was lots of things to fix. So I think people maybe get, the number of drafts reduces over time, maybe as you get more experienced. But with this book, there were many.
Okay, thank you. Esther, do you have your hand up?
Yes.
Okay.
I was asking because the way you ended it, it looked like it was either gonna stop or if you're gonna like make another book. So
Mm.
are you like planning on making another book of like the suite of that book?
We weren't, well, that's excellent question. Good, well spotted, because we weren't sure what at the end of that book. Okay, is this we knew that there was going to be another book in this world, like in the world of Gala, with some of the characters with this country, right? But whether it would be like a direct sequel. So we kind of with my publisher and with my editor threw around a lot of ideas, like, okay, so what's going to happen next? And so it could have been that, I was leaning towards Bookie, who becomes prime minister, being like the next story in terms of what happens with her next. But actually, the book that I'm working on is happening across the country. It's about a year later, with some other characters. So there is some crossover with this book, but and again, it's the same. They're struggling with the same kinds of things in terms of, well, now there's a queen and she's trying to make these changes, and people don't like change. So that impacts the story that's happening in another part of the country.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So you see, it's such a blessing that we brought the teenagers in here because
Yes.
the adults we seem lost.
Oh no. No, look, it's written for them, so that's great.
Okay, just say it. We seem lost.
So sorry, Louisa, but I'm not lost, and
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
definitely relating to this from my inner teenager.
okay.
So,
They're lost in the spider.
right. I guess my question was kind of along the lines of what Essay just brought up in terms of what can we expect for a sequel or for a series. I think there's so much potential for more world building. Like I'm very interested in the different territories, the north, the east, the south, and the different cultures that are embedded in that place and how they all come together under the new queen. Another aspect that I was kind of yearning more for when I read the book was the magic. I mean, this is young adult fantasy, so I did enjoy the sort of influence of the goddess on Calothea and the special connection that she has there, and I think it kind of speaks to even more like African spirituality on how certain deities have an affinity or an affiliation with somebody who is on Earth's kind of personality or character, and seeing how they can influence things through that person, even though they still have kind of hands tied in a way, like they can't
Mm,
just come down and do things for us, but they are able to channel their influence through people on Earth. So I was just wondering if they're like what direction that will go in terms of the goddess who appreciates the worship but does not agree, like she feels like um her ways have been corrupted by the
mm,
patriarchy and is invested in shifting that and assisting Calothea in doing that. So I was just wondering more about like the magical aspect and what was your inspiration for that, and how you could possibly expand more on that.
okay, thank you. So yeah, it's not a magical world in that, and I was tempted at some point. So I was like, should I have more magic in here? Because I love reading fantasy books with magic. But I guess it's only magical in that the 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 things that the goddess is able to sort of do and imbue characters with. And yeah, it was like a kind of balancing act in terms of, well, how much should I allow her to do? Because I didn't want her to solve people's problems, because she could, right? Well, so I had to give her some restraints to stop that being the goddess will just fix it. But also, but while still having a powerful being there. So I think that balancing act continues, but it's almost like she sort of glanced away. And in goddess time and in earth time, those are sort of two different things. So while she might think, I just looked over there to do something for a second, for humans, it's like generations have passed, and where have you been? And so it's sort of, I think book two is more of her she's like, okay, we've got to fix this situation here. And her attention is on humanity and on Gala. And okay, but again, there's still restrictions. I can't get too involved. I think she likes to choose young women to be like, you are going to be the vassal for now that I'm going to channel some of this change through. So she's used Calathea. Now she's looking at a new character that, okay, I can make some use of you. And she'd mentioned in book one that, Queen Sylvia, she'd been like, well, I thought she would be useful, but some things happened and I wasn't able to save her, kind of thing. So yeah, so I guess she's sort of got um a new target in some ways for book two. So she'll do a little bit more, but she still won't be able to, she won't be with a sweep of her hand to make things happen. People will still have to do the work on the ground. So there's a bit more magicality, I think, in the next book.
Right, thank you. And there was a part in the book where she alluded to almost like a greater pantheon, where she was
Mm.
like something about that's for only those like greater than me are able to do that. So, will there be any more like will there be more of a pantheon of deities
Mm.
have influence on Gala and the goings on there besides the goddess in the future?
I don't want to say too much. And also because I'm on sort of draft two of book two. So things can still change, right? So I might say something now and you'd be like, but she said, and it's like, actually went through more drafts and things changed. So again, I've been wondering if I should, because yes, she's like, there's basically mentioned that there's a hierarchy kind of thing in terms of where she is. And that's what creates some of the restrictions. And it was me sort of looking at, sort of West African religions and looking at those, the hierarchical sort of God structure. And so, but also I didn't want to make it too complicated. So you're like, how much does the story need? How much should I hint at? How much should I reveal? How much bogs it down a little bit too much? So it is really gonna still be the goddess. But I don't know. There might be a little bit more because I'm not sure yet. That's a horrible politician non-answer. So,
That's perfect. Thank
but
you.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Essie, I see your hand up.
Um, I remember in the end when Nahir had been accused of killing the prince of their like neighboring.
Rival country, yes.
Yeah. So I was like, I remember when Calofia she found like the prime minister's like her uncle's hideout, the place where he kept all his secrets. So
Mm,
when he saw the prime minister saw her, he was now saying stuff like, "Oh, I have to do it." Like he was not talking about how her mother kept on getting in the way and how he liked her brother, but then he got in the way. So is he trying to say that he was the one that killed Calofia's mother and Calofia's brother?
yes, well, so that he basically set things, that the mother was accused of basically treason, of having an affair, and so he had sort of helped to set things in a way that that she would be accused in that way, and then to sort of ramp up the rumor mill, right? So he'd kind of guided people the king to feel like, oh, his wife was cheating on him. So he works very quietly and very subtly in the background so people don't look at him, but he's gently sort of manipulating things. So yeah, he had decided at some point that the mother was a threat to him and she was too smart. She was asking too many questions and she, was a problem. And then had helped to basically create the situation that led to her execution.
Oh, but in the case of the brother, I remember reading a part that said like he was killed in like a fire.
Mm.
So it was probably the prime minister that caused the
Yes,
fire.
look at you reading so closely. Yes, yes. You know what? And it was so we were unsure because I was like, should we kill the brother? Should we keep the brother? Should we? So then, yeah, he dies sort of off page in this mysterious fire. And yes, yes, it was the Prime Minister Hadley who was responsible for that. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's been doing a lot of things over a very long time and just, reacting to situations whenever he feels threatened or he feels somebody's going to find his secret and that kind of thing, then he's like, right, this person's now a problem that they have to be gotten rid of.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Essie. So I was gonna ask you, when you were talking, I was just listening.
Mm,
So, and how I enjoy stories is I connect with a character and I follow the character's journey. So I wanted to ask, writer to writer, how did you develop Calothia's character?
mm,
And also the setting of the book? Because I got to a part where you were talking about where they met, I think, people from the north.
mm,
And she had said, so what I expected there was they were going to say a couple of words in Hausa.
mm,
But then they were not talking about, is it a Lupeju or Oshodi? I know. But when they mentioned the North, they mentioned it was Yoruba culture, I think they mentioned. And me,
mm,
I grew up in Nigeria.
mm,
I spent most of my life in the North. And I know that in the North, it's Hausa.
mm,
Hausa, Kanuri, Fulani, all those kind of things. So how did you go about developing, creating the setting, developing Kalothia's character? And
mm,
the name Kalothia, where did that name come from? Because I
right.
expected to see a BC or something.
Mm,
Uh-huh.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, no, this is very very interesting question because um okay, so in terms of the setting, I guess once I started writing, when I said to myself, right, I'm gonna move this story from England, from Europe to West Africa, I then realized I don't know anything about West Africa. I've never lived there.
Yeah.
That just had not realized, even in terms of the history, what empires have been here, what, the different groups, like, it's like, wow, you really know nothing. And then it was like a really beginning of point zero to be like, right, how do we go about building up this society that what's the government like, what are the religions, what is the music, what instruments, what are people's houses made from, what materials, like, all of these things. It was like, I'm okay, blank page. So then, and then it was like, okay, you still got to write this book. You can't just become a historian and spend the next 10 years exploring the history of West Africa. So I thought, I will, kind of use, just a mix of sort of what I know about West Africa, the research that I'm doing. I will fill in some gaps with European things, and then I will make some things up, and it would just be a mixture of things. And it's interesting because I've read books where, where people do the same thing, right? And it's jarring, right? Because you're like, this is familiar, but this is not familiar. And these two things don't go together, right? So it's almost like, I bet how people in South Africa feel when they watch Black Panther. And somebody who's not South African is like, there's nothing wrong with these accents. But somebody who is South Africa is like, oh, I can't listen to this. It's very jarring, right? So I thought, it's gonna feel that way because I'm not picking one, I'm using things from Yoruba culture, but I'm also mixing it up with so many other things. And like you said, like the names, like there's no necessarily, they're not all Yoruba names. It's a real mix of, sometimes I've taken a European name, sometimes I've, made up a name. And like Calathea, I think I just felt like I liked the sound of that word. And somebody later told me, oh, it's a flower. It's like, I didn't even know. I can't even remember where it came from, but I think I just liked the sound of that name. And it's not, Yoruba in any way, obviously, right? And I was like, I'm Kikelomo. She's a K2, excellent. Take it. That's it, done. So it was really just, I think that I was like, I will just try to infuse it with a sense of West Africanness. But I was like, what, in future books, I've got to do more research so that it could be better grounded. I'll do better. But for now,
To us and ask us. You. Yeah, because I was reading it because I'm a history junkie, right?
mhm,
I have this children's book series where I educate children about the continent. So when I do these things, authenticity, it's like when you spoke about the accent,
mm,
that is how I feel when I hear people trying to do a Nigerian accent.
mhm,
I tell people, you see, there are many accents you can fake, but you see a Nigerian accent, you can't fake a Nigerian accent.
mm.
You can't. Most people who try to sound Nigerian end up sounding East African. Because when I hear them say things like, "Oh, are we coming back?" and I'm like, "That is
Yeah, it's not
South
quite.
Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
That is not." See, what's the word now? There's the essence.
Mm,
Like when you eat jollof rice or you taste egusi soup, I can't describe it to you.
mm.
The feeling, look, you have to taste it to know.
Yes.
So that essence, because I'm gonna ask Shadi, you mentioned the North.
Mm.
I'm not hearing Abubakar. I'm not hearing Yaya. I'm not hearing Hausa here. What's going on? Okay. All right. We forgive you for that. We
But
that.
I think that I also wanted to be like, let me not take too much from Nigeria. Let me not take too much from Yoruba. So it's not, in fact, so the more that you mix it in some ways, the less people will expect. So it's like, if there's no Yoruba, then there will be no Hausa there, right? Like, I know that I took some words, but I never used the word Yoruba, that kind of thing. I feel like what I did in the end that I wanted to do was just to take some things that, like when I talked about what the houses were built from, and I said that they're built from a kind of mud, and there was a reason why they build it in this way because it's a temperature regulation thing. So that I thought I will take some things that exist and explain the reasoning behind them. And that will, and they're authentic in that way. And it will be, again, step one, that the next book will figure some more things out. The next book, that sometimes it's just that we read so many books that are set in Europe and they're done in so many different ways, and they mix up different eras, and they mix up different, they have 50,000 different dukes running around and all, kinds of things. And I thought that we could do the same thing with Africa too. We'll have books that are authentically set in a place and with a thing. And then there's other things that just have a flavor of it, like, I don't know, African seasoning, whatever, that, and name something so that the next time you hear that name of a place, Ushodi, you might think, oh, I've heard that before. What is that? Just the way when you hear London or you hear Paris or you hear whatever. Let's normalize hearing some things that are from a different part of the world as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Tosin, I see your hand up.
Right. I just wanted to make a comment along the same themes that um, I could definitely pick up that this was a fusion. This was this was a fusion of African culture with a little bit of Europeanisms in there. And once I read your bio, it made sense because I was like, you can't mine from what you don't know.
Yes, yes.
Um, so I definitely appreciated that. And there was a little bit of kind of northern, like I think Naher kind of sounds like Nasser, which is
Mm,
a Hausa name. So I picked up some effort in terms of like the regionalisms, but I appreciated the overall infusion of things like, oh, the clothes, the Shokoto, names like Ilupeju and Oshodi, Buki,
mm,
um, and I think the fusion is good because then it can appeal to the palate of the diaspora a little bit. Like I feel like if it was just fully set in Nigeria, there would be a little bit of um sort of cultural socialization that has to happen while you're reading the book before you then like getting to it. But I feel like because there's that fusion aspect and that like people from the Caribbean can relate to the Europeanisms as they then like get a little bit of African seasoning in it. People from other parts of the continent can pick up on it. And then just everybody like who is kind of binational Nigerian, British, Nigerian, Canadian, Nigerian, American can relate to it while still getting a little bit of that essence of connecting back to one's roots. So yeah, kudos on the effort. It's definitely not easy to just make it authentic when like
yeah.
you didn't like live and grow up in Nigeria as such.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what I was going for. And it's very true. And you know what? I really, just the experience of writing it again, I didn't know how much I didn't know. I didn't even know to ask the questions until I started trying to write about West Africa. And then I was like, how is it that you know so little? And how it like, because I grew up with Nigerian parents and you just feel like they're giving you, and you're like, actually, no, I have nothing. And so then it was great though, because then you start that journey of, wow, there's so much to discover. So, so yeah, so even though it was quite shocking to me how little knowledge I had of sort of West African cultures and history and that kind of thing, it was also, I'm glad that I thought to start writing something like that highlighted that for me.
Okay. Thank you. Well, the thing about I think our culture is there is so much. There is so much, there is so much unpacking to do. There so because one thing we should not forget is there's been a lot of whitewashing.
Mm,
A lot of whitewashing, a lot of stories have been retold. So I'm working on a series of children's books, my Africa is not a country series. And when I was doing the research I'm working on the Amazons of Dahomey.
mhm,
And I realized that they were not the first set of Amazons we had. They actually, the first set and how the name Amazons came about was there was a time this female warriors existed in Algeria, but there is no story about them.
mhm,
And that many historical stories about heroes and heroines, some of the heroes were actually women. But through the years, as the stories have been passed down, it now became about men,
mm.
not women. So you see, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, it became
yes.
about men, not women. When they talk about Egypt, for the longest time, if you see movies like Cleopatra and so on, those people were not Egyptians. They were white people.
Mhm,
But how do you explain when you find mummified bodies with braids? How do you explain that? Caucasian's hair won't do braids.
Mm.
To get braids, you need kinky hair to get braids. If you want to use Caucasian hair, you'll need to add kinky extensions to get braids. And then they still come back and tell you, no, then you look at, if you look at the movement, you look at the Buddha. Let me go to the Buddha. For the longest time, a lot of people said that the Buddha had on a hat, which I found very interesting. And as I started to do my first children's books that was about hair, as I started to do research, I put two and two together and figured out that the Buddha actually had on Bantu knots. And then I looked at the nose of the Buddha, it was like mine. And I looked at the thick lips.
Mm.
And the people who live there don't look like the Buddha. How come? So you see, that's the thing about history. So sometimes you find yourself asking, it's like in Christianity where they say, they'll tell you that in Revelations, when you are talking to these Christians, they say to you, woe unto anyone who adds to this book and woe unto
Mm.
anyone who takes out of this book. And I remember asking someone one time, I said, okay, beautiful. Yes, we're Christians, but I read history and I base things on facts. Okay, the Catholic Bible has extra chapters. The other Bible has less chapters, and Catholicism came before other religions. So which Bible was added to and which one was taken out from?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm.
you have everybody, the room goes quiet.
Ah. Chaos, chaos, yes.
So yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah,
no, history is definitely there's it's unpacking, it's uncovering, it's all the things that have been shifted and like you said, added to or adapted. Like actually, we want this character here. We like the things that they did, but we prefer if it was a man who did those things instead of a woman. We're gonna scrape off somebody's name here, that kind of thing. Like the uncovering of it, the layers of it is like sort of like digging through earth, and then and across Africa, such a vast continent with so many different stories and so many different cultures. Like it's you kind of always have to it's it's overwhelming to think, right, where do I start in terms of this? But I think that just I guess people starting, right, something that piques their interest and that also alerts them to the fact that there's a lot more here. There's some films that are coming out that are making people think, oh, let me go and read more about that, and then that takes you, it's your your gateway drug kind of thing that gets you in to the funnel. So it's all, I think it's all, everybody becoming a sort of mini historians would be great.
yeah. Okay. So while we're still on that, I would like, so what themes were most important to you while writing this story? Because like I already figured out patriarchy. I said patriarchy was part of it. I could tell the
Yes.
cultural history, but what themes were most important when writing the story?
I think definitely patriarchy. I think that's always one of my evergreen themes because it's just something that I really cannot get my head around. That how can 50% of the planet be treated like second-class citizens is really, and that even when you prove yourself, I really wanted to kind of explore the idea of somebody who, either through blood or through whatever, this is the position that you're supposed to take, but people will question you. So even if even if a woman is fully qualified or whatever, it's that we must still make her feel like she's unworthy of this position. And I wanted to just to challenge that idea. So definitely patriarchy. I think also just the hierarchy of people wanting kings and leaders, and why is it that people are willing, what are the things that makes a country willing to follow one leader and not another leader? That was something that what's the thing that's going to make you feel comfortable about, yes, our society is safe in this person's hands, to to think about that. And just I think making choices for yourself. There were a lot of discussions about how the book would end, because I think that leadership is a poison chalice, that that it's a real sense of sacrifice, that if there's a zombie apocalypse and you're like, I will be the leader and I will get us through this, and it's like, I will run and hide. I don't know why you want to be the leader, but I feel like there's a real sense of people who feel like, yes, I will step up and I will do this thing. But is that, does that make them better than somebody who says, no, I will not step up, I will preserve or whatever? I just felt like Calathea has, she spent her life being told what to do, where to live, she's been sort of closeted from the world and she's not had autonomy. And now if she becomes queen, does she have autonomy? Because aren't you now responsible to the people? Isn't that your life now? Like, why would that be the thing that you would choose to do? And do you have a choice over that? Is an abdication of responsibility to be like, actually, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the leader. So I wanted to explore that too.
Okay, so now that you've said that, okay, Tosin, I'll come back to you. Now that you've said that, one of the themes I was looking at, and I had asked that question, and I liked the answers the teenagers gave, where I was saying, how important is it for us to see ourselves in these kind of stories? So that's where I said we are all stuck in the Spider-Verse. We went to the Spider-Verse because my niece was talking about the Spider-Verse, and I was lost. And I was just asking, who is this? Who is this? And who is that? Yeah. So no, I haven't asked that question. So, as an author, how important do you think it is for children to see? Because I advocate for mirror and sliding door stories.
Mm.
So, for those who don't understand, mirror stories is where stories where you see yourselves. Sliding door stories are stories that give you an opportunity to step into a different world and a different experience. So, I would ask you as an author, and I'm going to ask my niece to repeat what she said about the importance of having us, our teenagers, reflected in stories, and you speak to that. So,
Mhm.
how important do you think that is? Then, after you, Kanye, you will say what you said before, then Tosin will take your question.
Okay, so I'll go first. So I mean, I think it's extremely important that we see ourselves. I think that's why it's really important that we have a range, that everybody's writing in terms of across all races, across all, genders and like, working class, middle class, all the different classes, because I think it's really important that you can see yourself represented. I think growing up, the black books that we had were all almost all African American. And even though they were black, I feel like it was such a shock to me when I started to see black British writers, because then their experiences were a bit different and they were closer to mine. So just seeing somebody who kind of feels like you. And I think it helps you to feel like, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. And it opens up opportunities. And so I think some people are amazing and they can project themselves onto other things and they can reach for things without having seen themselves there. And I think there are other people, and I think that's the majority of the people who can't picture themselves doing a thing unless they see somebody who looks like them. And then that kind of sparks the idea in them. So I think it's extremely important.
Okay. Kanye, who is this? Charmaine, can you mute your hold on, let me see.
Charmaine, you on the bus? Yeah,
Okay, no, I
hit
just
mute.
muted her now. I just muted
Okay.
her. So, Kanye, please, can you repeat what you said when I asked that question about the importance of seeing ourselves in these kind of stories, this kind of young adult fantasy stories? Can you repeat what you said, if you remember?
Okay, so I basically just said that it was important that we see ourselves in these so that we know that we can reach the same places as like other people can, like white actors in white like dominated fields. Like if a black actor goes out and portrays like this excellent black actor like Chadwick Boseman, for example, when he did Black Panther, many young boys or girls, they looked up to him so much that brought out like a lot of like they found it very cool. The warrior woman in those, like the whole concept of the story was like amazing. It shows that we can do like exactly what they can do. We can even do it better, basically.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that it is so true, right? And I think part of, I don't know, that part of a group of people like black women, black girls sort of rising up and doing more things is just believing. Half of it is believing that you can do it, and when you have stories that tell you that you can do it, that's half the battle won. And then it's just the steps to take to actually do it. So I fully agree.
Okay. Zoe, you haven't asked the author any question. Zoe, are you there? Zoe, unmute yourself. You haven't asked the author any question because yesterday you said you were on page 92 or 96. You haven't asked the author any question, Zoe.
While she's
Um,
thinking, I think Tosin's waiting. Oh, sorry,
And
go on.
Tosin is waiting. Tosin,
Oh,
please,
okay.
just let the teenagers for now. Let me ask them.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Zoe, oh, I thought you were going to ask a question.
I don't really have any questions. I've not finished reading the book.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Happy reading. Keep
Happy
going.
reading.
Wait, but there's one question I have.
What was that? What's the question?
Like the main character's name. What does it mean? I've never heard that name before.
That's great because as far as I know, I plucked it out of my head. But then it turns out that it's also the name of a flower. So it was just something that I thought of, and I'd been playing with different names, and I just liked the sound of it, just like it felt poetic, and I liked that it started with a K. So there was no meaning to it, whatever. I just liked the sound of that name.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Tosin. Oh, Kanye, hold on. After Tosin asks, what do you want to say, Kanye?
All right. Well, what's her name? Like, what's the main
Oh,
character?
Alothea.
Calathea.
Alothea.
Color. Oh, okay.
Don't worry, I'll send you a copy of the book. Okay, Tosin.
Right. I was just going to speak to a point that was brought up a little while ago, which was um, I guess Calothea wanting to assert her independence after having growing up being told what to do and being, corralled away in this forest and having a yearning to want to explore and go out and finally being able to step out of her kind of confined world, even though there's all this new information that is so like jarring for her to find out and switches her whole turns her whole universe upside down. But I appreciated the tension there that she had in terms of accepting a role of leadership that was just kind of thrust upon her, even though it's something she inherited through her bloodline. And I think it just kind of sometimes speaks to um, things that we go through that sometimes I guess appear to be destined, like your fate or your destiny, and then still finding a way within that to assert your own autonomy. Like she didn't just step into the role and carry on status quo. Like she was gonna go in there, okay, I've made a choice now. I like that she made a conscious choice that, okay, I choose to accept this destiny. I choose to accept this fate. And now that I am within this role, I'm not just going to be in the box that has been set for me. She went in there ready to shake things up and change things up and still assert her autonomy, even though it seemed like something had been thrust upon her. So yeah, I really appreciated that aspect.
Yes, that's really what I wanted it to be, a conscious choice rather than just her being, like placed into a new role that she now has to fulfill. So yeah, that's and yeah, so I'm glad that it came off that way because I think, the other choice was that if she hadn't been, looking for her parents, she just wanted to explore Gala and just see the world, and that's at odds with you leading a country. So I wanted it to be something that she thought through, and she'd been like, okay, if I'm going to take on this, it's got to be, there's got to be a reason behind it, and that is to better the world that we live in. That actually I can't explore freely with the way the world is anyway. So let's fix this.
Okay, thank you. So, I need clarity on her parents. Did her father actually have her mother executed?
Hmm.
And was the rumor about the reason for the execution, which was adultery, was it true? Because I know that it kept coming up.
Mm.
I don't think there was ever a part where it read it was a mistake or so I need clarity on that because I'm just wondering who would do such a thing? Like why?
Well, I mean, so yes, so yes, her father had the mother executed, and yes, for adultery, and because he really loved that woman. And so in the throes of being sort of angry and feeling betrayed and all the rest of it, was the best time to kind of urge him to be like, you know what, this is a capital crime. It is treason that we should have her executed. And by the time he had a point, he had time to think about his behavior, the woman was already dead. So that is what happened. And yes, and no, the mother did not cheat. She did not have an affair. It was just a setup. I think that when you're in, positions, in positions of power, there are always people who are also vying for power and looking at ways to maneuver and, sort of starting whisper circles and all kinds of things. There's always background things going on. I don't know that it's possible to be neutral if you're in a powerful position. So I think that there's always, that political intrigue happening. So she fell victim to, to a plot really, and that took her down and took her out.
Oh, that's sad. So
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Yes.
So about the main character, they said she had a brother who was a prince, but I don't really know if he's alive or not, since I never really got that in the book.
Ah, see, well, I don't know where you. I don't. We don't want to spoil the book for you because you haven't finished yet. But I
Yeah.
think you find out that
Essie
I,
already said it. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but I think she missed that part, so
Ask
we shouldn't tell
Essie.
her.
Ask Essie. Ask Essie.
So
Okay.
yes, that you will find out, but you probably maybe you're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I know she's still reading the book. Yeah, she hasn't finished. Okay. So did any characters or scenes change significantly from your first draft to the final draft? And if yes, which characters and which scenes changed? I know that you started off it being as Calothea being a white girl, and
Mm,
then later you changed to her being a black girl. But are there
yeah.
any other characters or significant scenes that changed?
Yeah. So I mean, I would say that pretty much everything changed from the first draft of the novel, which was probably a romance, an adult romance, to it becoming YA fantasy, So, and I think that the characters that stayed the same were Calathea, Nakia, and Prime Minister Hadley, and the like auntie and teacher were the characters that sort of remained throughout. And just the opening being, the assassins attack the home, that stayed the same. But from draft one to final draft, almost everything else changed. And so it was just like a kind of figuring out like what the story is. Like the first half of the story is sort of a well, is a quest that I would need to get from this place where I've been sequestered and I don't know anybody or whatever, and I don't even know what the world is like outside of this forest, to I have to find my way into the royal court. And, so I got to get across the country. I've got to talk my way in somehow through, through the palace gates or whatever to try to then begin the second part, which is the mystery of who's trying to kill me. So it's sort of two genres in one. And that I would say that even when in 2018, I took a year off from work and I sat down, I was like, right, I'm going to write this novel from beginning to end. And I deleted, I would say, 95% of it and started again and was like, right, we're really going to make this thing, going to make it clarify the whole thing and hold together properly. So over that year, even from that point, right? So the draft that I did in 2018 is the draft that I submitted to get an agent, and it's the draft, yes, to get an agent, even when we submitted it to the publisher, from when the publisher got it, I would say the second half of the book then changed again, because writing a mystery is so kind of intricate that you've really got to, sort of plant all your plots, your plot um leads and everything in order for it to tie up at the end, and trying to get all of that right. We redrafted the second half of it. I think that changed in a lot of ways, and even like Prime Minister Hadley's motivations for the things that he did change in terms of why is he doing this and how, who is he? His character changed a lot. So there was, yeah, it was if you read draft one and you read the final draft, you'd be like, these are two completely different books. I would say there's probably 8 different books that I could get out of this one book if I was to publish all the different versions.
Okay. Okay. Tosin?
Right. I it's interesting that you mentioned that it started out as an adult romance, because that was another part of the book that I appreciated, the little push and pull between Calithia and Nair and how their romance blossomed. Also with the backdrop of, some of the other men in the book, the lords who were vying to marry her off to whoever as a means to legitimize a woman being a leader, or just wanting her to, be a broodmare and have an heir who could be a boy and then rightfully lead kind of thing. But I'm just a little bit curious, I guess, as to I guess it's kind of part of Caluthia just being an outside of the box character, because now you have a queen who is, I guess, making her choice for a romance partner, which is a little unusual in royal circles. And then choosing um, her bodyguard or a lowborn individual, so to speak.
Although his father is still, I guess,
True. Yes.
yes. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. I think that uh, I feel like that. Okay, well, I guess there's two reasons that in that one, even if I'm going to put aside my goal and my desire to see the country, and I'm going to take on the mantle of being queen and leading this country. But I at least want to be able to choose my partner. I think that that so much of her character is that she wants to make her own choices, right? So that's something that she wasn't going to compromise on. But then I also think that like so much of her autonomy depends on her having a partner who's not then going to try and fight her, every step of the way kind of thing. Somebody who's going to be supportive and is able to sort of be in the background and allow her to be, kind of the star of the show and the main character. So I feel like that, she really needed to. It was the choice of a partner, is either be alone or make sure, it's like Elizabeth the First in terms of, who never married, because you don't want to end up with with somebody who's now trying to take the throne from you and trying to fight you for power kind of thing. So I think that, Nahir was such a great foil for her because he's like, I am confident and I have enough, I'm confident in myself that I don't need you to be less in order for me to be somebody important, right? Like, I don't need you to kneel in order for me to feel like I'm standing up. So she needs somebody who's like that. It doesn't need her to be, second.
Right. And I guess it also makes sense her having someone who knows her and having been so familiar with her through, all the years and her growing up. So yeah, I thought that was a very cute romance. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Yes, friends to lovers is one of my favorite tropes.
Yeah.
So I'm always like somebody who's like you can really trust and they're loyal. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, Essay, I see your hand up.
So I remember at the end when she found the prime minister stuff. So he he didn't want to when he was after he finished explaining, I I actually knew he was not gonna let her go, but I didn't know if he was gonna kill her or not. But then after he gave her this like injection, but I didn't at first I didn't really know if it was like the one he used to kill her bodyguard, the one like the shot thing that was like poisoned. So then I was kind of confused, like what the thing was that he gave her. Like he said, it made her fall asleep, but then after they were like, he was just saying stuff. So I didn't know if he wanted her to help him, like destroy the country or like
Mm. Yeah, I feel like he just wanted some thinking time. So he was like, I would just knock you out for now, but I'm coming back. So, it was just like, let me, he could have, I guess, could have knocked her out and then killed her then and there. But it was like, I'm just going to keep you here and I will come back to deal with you kind of thing, which is always a villain's first mistake. Just deal with it right then. But yes, so
Okay, Kanye, I see your hand up.
So I have a question. I've read a book like quite similar to this, but like I always like, how do you think of it? Like I know you have to change some things and stuff, but like what's the first like in the first draft, like what did you really think of? And then you added everything together to kind of like come with the book. Like how?
I think that every writer writes differently. And there's some writers who will plot the whole thing out in their head, like this is going to be the story, these are going to be the characters, and they'll write down notes and then they'll write the book afterwards. So those people are called plotters. And there are people who are called pantsers, people who just write and they just think whatever story is coming up my head, I would just write. And those people always end up writing their story many, many times because if you write everything that comes out of your head, most of it will be nonsense or it won't work, it won't make sense, whatever. You're not following a plot. And I am the second person. I'm the person who's like, I would just write down everything and then I will go back and read and see what bits do I like, what story ideas are coming out. So with this one, I did have a bit of an idea because again, I was thinking about, Elizabeth first. I was thinking about it started with, what if there's a girl who is heir to the throne? She does doesn't know who her parents are, and there are people who don't want her to take the throne. So that was, the idea. But then it was like, well, who are those people and where does it happen? And so I enjoy writing, so I don't mind just writing. And you write again. I wrote the first 50,000 words, so you have to write, I think, something like 3,000 words a day, for 30 days in order to hit that 50. So you don't have time to think, which is great, because often the thing that keeps us from writing our story is wondering, well, what should happen? And then what should happen? You spend all this time thinking, you don't write anything. Whereas if you're like, I don't care, I have to write 3,000 words a day, let me just be writing. So then at the end of that time, you read back and you think, I like this, I like this, I don't like this, I'm going to cut all of this out. Let me see what I'm left with. And then, right, now let me shape it into a story. So again, people do it in different ways, but I'm somebody who likes to just put everything on paper and then take out the bits that I like and then rework those bits.
Mm. So what advice do you have for aspiring writers, especially for the young, like we have the young ones here, and I can see
Mm,
they're all into young adult fantasy. This is the age. So what advice do you have for them, those of them who are interested in writing? Because Kanye just asked a question now, so I guess she's
yeah.
drafting something somewhere.
Well, I think I think one of it is kind of explore what kind of writer you are. So if you like coming up with stories, write down your notes first. This is what happens in the beginning. This is what happens in the middle. This is what happens in the end. Or more detailed. These are this is how the beginning will develop. Chapter one, two, three, these are the things that are going to happen. And you can write it out like that. And then once you've written out and think, right, these are the characters, this is the main character, these are the other characters in the story, then you could start writing. So some people like to, you might be a person who wants to plan it out first and then write. And so then just try it out, come up with an idea and, think today I'm going to outline what this idea is, and then I'm going to put some more detail in there. This is the setting, these are the characters, this is the story, just the basics. And then next week I'm going to write the opening and I'm just going to go from there. Or you might think, right, I'm just going to start writing. If I have this idea for something, this character is talking to this character, I'll write their conversation. Tomorrow, I'll maybe write a conversation between. So I think that the key thing I would say is just write something, whether it's the notes or the main thing, just be writing something. And bit by bit, it will start to come together, because every time you look back at what you've written, it will generate new ideas. And then you start to shape things and move things around and shuffle them and that kind of thing. So I think the key thing is start writing something.
Okay, start writing. Kanye, do you have your hand up? Esther, do you have your hand up again?
Yes.
Okay, so Kanye, ask your question, then Essay will ask her question.
Okay, because I've actually because I really love fantasy and especially like war stories because I feel they're so interesting and like the detail like the authors put into this. So I'm guilty of trying to like write my own thing. It never really turned out. Like I had everything in my head. I think of like, oh, this is so cool, and I come to write it, and I'm like, oh, like how does she even do that? How do I even like write that into existence? It's very like weird and very awkward when I try to do it. But like I feel my ideas like could actually be really good, but then I just leave like have a blank page. I'm like, okay, another time. I don't know.
Well, you know what? This means that you are a writer. This means that you're an artist, because this is what every artist does, right? Is that the thing in your head and the thing that comes out, it's so hard trying to get those two things to match up. So the idea in your head, you write it. I think you've got to actually write it down. You can't just have the blank page. You've got the thing in your head, you've got to write it out. But then once you've written it out, you read it back and think, okay, it doesn't quite match what's in my head. Let me redraft it. Let me try again. So much of writing is just rewriting things. So I think there's very few people who can write it once and it comes out exactly as it was perfectly in their head. For most of us, it's that you write it out, you think this is horrible, this is terrible, this is not what I meant at all. But then you try again and you try again and you try again and you keep on playing with it until it gets closer and closer to the thing that's in your head. But just don't leave the page blank. You put it down and then you work on it. So you're
Yeah.
already made the first step. That's it. Just get it down.
Especially when you have a great auntie like me.
There you go. You see, you ask Auntie Louisa, she's helping you. Yes.
So Essay, ask your question.
So I remember in the book they said that only the king's daughters and king's like children had red hair. So does that mean that like her brother also had red hair, or was it just her out of the family?
Oh, this is such a good question. Did her brother have red hair? He might have. I cannot remember. I have to read it back and be like, did I give him red hair? Because I guess the thing is she needed the red hair. Her dad definitely had, was it that had red hair. So she needed it was like as soon as she walks into the palace or anyone sees her, they're like, okay, this only happens in one family, this trait. Whereas her brother, because he's born, in the palace to, the second wife or would it didn't need that proof of I am the king's son. So it almost doesn't matter whether he had red hair or not. But I actually can't remember whether I gave the brother red hair. But that was a distinctive trait that if anybody saw her, they'd be like, whoa, this is unusual. How comes you have red hair? And it's sort of almost like a pass, into being able to sort of legitimize herself.
Oh wait, I also remember I read this part that they said I wonder if like did this happen in the olden days or is it in the future kind of because there was the lords when she came in the lords were saying that like the woman could have like done witchcraft like kind of like made dye to dye their hair
Mm,
because
yes.
now it's really easy for you to dye your hair red but in the olden days like there's some stuff they could like use berries to like dye their hair. Is that
Yes. Oh my gosh, so well remembered. Yes, when she's in the royal court, and she, people are making the point that look, she's got red hair, and the sort of the courtiers and the governors who don't want her to be considered as part of the royal family are immediately like, no, anybody could get red hair, and they're throwing out all these sort of theories on how she might have, maybe it's witchcraft, or maybe she dyed it with and you're right, there's certain kinds of dye. It wouldn't be the chemical dyes that we have these days, but there are plants that you can use to dye your hair, specifically red, even throughout history. So there are ways that they could have dyed it. It's just that it wouldn't last as long, maybe it wouldn't be as vibrant. But yes, they were like, this doesn't mean that she's definitively part of the royal family.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Before I ask let me see, it's 12:53:54 here. Before I ask my last two questions, and before I forget, can we take a group photo with the books? Yeah, because I think there was one time I forgot. If you don't have the book, it doesn't matter, but if you have it, uh, and if you have it, please put on your camera. Let's see you. Let's see. Tosin, I thought you put up yours. Uh-huh. Okay, everybody put Miss Heather, put yours closer to the screen. Uh-huh, yours is too far away. Good, yeah. Big smile, everyone. Yes, everyone is now a celebrity. Good. So, my last two questions. So, one of them is, do, do you have a favorite part of the story, of the book? Is there a part that, you resonate with or that you hold very dearly? We always
Oh.
have favorite parts of books or favorite characters.
I feel like maybe the conversation with Bookie. I felt like I liked when the Calathea and Bookie were getting closer, but also when Bookie was just explaining to her how things work in the royal court and the challenges that women face and how it really the way that woman sort of purports herself and dresses herself and everything has so much impact and how like the restrictions on women across the country that it's not you can't just go out and get a job or whatever, right? Like this is why women are dependent on men. And because Calathea hasn't really experienced the world, she's come from being in this very secluded life to being in the court. I liked the way that Bookie really broke that down for her because I was able to just put in some of my annoyances into that speech. So yeah, that's one of my favorite parts.
Okay. I always like
I have a
everybody.
question.
Okay, yes, Zoe. What do you want to say?
So they said like when she was born, after the mom was executed, she lived in the forest. So how did they know her exact location?
Ah, yes. Hold on. Okay, so now let me try to remember. Let me try to remember. So I think that after the brother had died, it was something to do with that basically Prime Minister Hadley had started to sort of search the country for her. Like believed that she was, there'd been rumors that she was out there. And so he sort of sent out people who worked for him and to start searching for her. So that's how they were able to send, the assassins. It's like they'd pinpointed her location and they were like, right, it's just a matter of timing now in terms of when we'll attack. So that's why certain things happen together and that she was attacked, that basically the same time that the king died. It wasn't a coincidence. So yeah, they had already located her.
Okay.
Okay.
Zoe, leave your camera on. I don't know. Your camera keeps going on and off. I saw Zuriel there. It's okay if we see Zuriel. It's fine. That's her naughty little sister, but that's fine. So I always like everybody to have an opportunity to say something, So three people haven't said anything since we started. So that's Heather, Lola, Charmaine. So Heather, you've listened to, I mean, this is Heather's first time joining us, like joining in. So you've listened to what everybody has said. I don't know if you had time to finish the book or if you had any time to start, but well, no apologies because we've already talked about the book and all of that. But from everything we've said today, what was your take on it? And tell us something. Heather, you're muted. Let's to unmute. No,
Yes.
Heather. Okay, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I thought it was interesting when you talked about, people having difficulty with change. Um, because to my way of thinking, the only way one ever develops is from change. The only way that, you go to the next level is if you make yourself uncomfortable in situations. If not, you're always in a situation where you're stagnant. It may not seem like it because everything is familiar, but that's where the kind of downfall is, because you need to be able to get uncomfortable in order to learn to grow, So it was just a comment that I had when I, listened to you say that.
No, I absolutely agree. That's how we grow. But I think that, but even it's hard despite that. Even when you know that in your head, coming out of your comfort zone is difficult. And I think especially for a country when you've got, big wide sweeping changes, like actually we're not just going to educate boys, we're also going to educate girls. And actually we're also going to allow women to inherit and to earn money and all these kinds of things. Like it's big, sort of economic, cultural changes that strike at the heart of their religion and their culture. And so, in time they will benefit from it. But right now, in that moment, they feel like our way of life is being threatened. So it's really hard for them. But
Thank
thank you
you.
for that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lola, what do you have to say with everything you've heard today? I don't know, Lola might be at work. Let me see. Let me check the chat box. She might have typed something in there.
I'm here.
Okay, Lola,
So
say something to us.
everything I've heard so far sounds very interesting. I'm gonna have to go read the book
Okay.
and see if I can get myself into it. The execution story sounds very familiar, like one of the kings of England, executing his wife because of reported adultery, or maybe she actually did, can't remember. But, I think Tosin mentioned a fusion of, European, African, and all of that. So it's sounding like I need to read the book. So
Well,
thank you, Shadi, for joining us.
oh, thank you, Lola, for joining us. No, it's been really good fun. And so yeah, no, definitely that story of Anne Boleyn, and there is still that question mark. Did Anne Boleyn actually cheat on Henry VIII? And we don't know, or did he just use it as an excuse, or people in the background sort of just manipulating events, right? So that's exactly it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Charmaine, you want to say something?
Charmaine's my friend, so I don't know if she's traveling. She might be en route
Oh, she
somewhere.
said she's in a noisy bus.
Ah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, she's in a noisy bus, so I
But
already.
thank you for making it, Charmaine.
All right, thank you, Charmaine. Um, Hemelin, this is how we call her Miss Hemelin. She always gives us, wisdom nuggets.
Ah, I love it.
Oh my
Now
God.
that we have Heather too, so we now have Miss Heather. So,
That Shade, it's very good. I love the cover of the book.
You.
I like the start of the book. I love to hear from the young folks or younger folks, tapping into their innocence. And I'm happy that you are thinking about them and reaching them. That's amazing. I hope to read the book, but I didn't get to read it yet. I started. I think I'm still in the beginning, like the first few pages. I think it's where the parents were speaking to the young lady and she
Mm-hmm.
was trying to figure out who she was.
Mm.
So kudos to you and congratulations. I love how you explained how to write or motivate us and the young ones how to start. Showing that vulnerability is important because many of us are, as they said, everybody has talents, right?
Mm.
But we don't nurture it. And talking about the change that you talked about, it ties in together. So even for me, sometimes I want it so quick, and you just reminded me like, slow down. Don't feel inferior, because these
Yes.
are the thoughts that goes on in the brain. I'm not good enough. So when Kanye is saying, I don't put it, it's really inspiring for you to give her that advice and for her to know that's how it starts. Just plant the seed and grow. So thank you for that. And
Oh,
hope you can continue on your journey. And also thank you for making us feel that we are princesses and kings in our own rights and that we live it, so we need to breathe it, feel it, and nurture it. So thank you for that, and good
oh,
luck.
thank you so much, Miss Hemmerlin. No, that's so lovely to hear, and
Yeah, that's
it really
making
is.
me keep it at Hermelin, please.
Oh,
all the wisdom
Thank you.
nuggets. Well, Miss H. Okay, Tosin. Then I think after Tosin, then I will ask my last question. Tosin, I see your hand up, right? Okay.
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to make one last comment and highlight one of my favorite characters in the book, which was Yeye the monkey. Um, that was such, I don't know, it was really adorable for me, to relate with the monkey through Calothea and just, have her animal companion, her pet, who was with her and who also played, quite a significant role in terms of keeping her grounded, in terms of reflecting and validating her emotions back to her, and even in her rescue when she was trapped in the prime minister's closet. So yeah, I always appreciate animal characters as well, and so I thought that was really cute. So shout out to Yeye, and
Oh,
thank you for
th th
including that.
thank you for loving Yeye. Oh, he was, I love the monkey in Aladdin, and just, I just wanted him to. He's one of my favorite characters. Just sitting around eating grapes and stealing people's keys. Love him. Thank you.
You know what I think of when I think of monkeys, I think of mischief. I know that my
Mm,
book, my book had a monkey called Sweet, and the duty of that monkey was to either to steal money. That was what the monkey used to do. Yeah.
mm.
So, two last questions.
Okay.
What are you working on next, and what do you hope readers will take away from this story?
Okay, I'll do this story first. So, in terms of what readers I want them to take away, um, I think I just want readers to enjoy like a good adventure and to, appreciate, I don't know, I guess the things that Calathea goes through and the choices that she makes and the fact that she is able to make choices and she chooses to make choices. But yeah, I think that, even just coming up with that shift again from her being a white character to a black character, I feel like um at some point in my head, I thought we are allowed to take up space and have stories and and just be the main character, and I just love this black girl being the main character and just doing main character things. So I just hope that people just enjoy that as well. And then book two is, yes, the second book set in the country of Gala, with in the midst of changes that are happening from the royal court and sort of radiating across the country, and that how that affects other people's lives. So it's a bit more rural. I really wanted to do something with a woman or with a girl who weaves. I was like, I don't know what else she's gonna do, but I want her to be a weaver. So, but yeah, that's the book that I'm working on right now.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any last questions before we let Shadi go? Okay, Essay.
I just wanted to say I really liked how the cover of the book, like how they showed Calovia covered with her hair. Because if they had like not covered her hair and they showed the red hair, it would have like it would have shown that she was the king's daughter if you because they didn't like reveal the fact that she was the king's daughter early in the book. It was like in the middle.
Mm.
So she had already gone to the village and they had already started talking about the king's daughter, like how the king has red hair. So if she didn't have red hair, I would have like easily known that she was the king's daughter.
Yeah, so there's glamour and there's there's a sense of royalty and regalness about the cover without revealing too much, right? Bit of mystery in there. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because when I saw the cover, when I saw the gele, I'm like, okay, gele. Then I'm looking at what's this other thing. It's almost like the chalice you carry in the Catholic Church, right?
Mm,
Benediction, like the one you
yeah,
around. So I'm
yeah.
looking at the contrast between the gele, the chalice, and then there's a black girl in there. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, the illustrator, the cover designer, I think Jeff Manning, he's a Black American, and he did, I sent some ideas and I put them on a Pinterest board, and then when I saw the cover, he did such an amazing job with it. Like it feels so rich and opulent, and I was like, I love it. So yeah,
Jeff Manning, I think I used to follow him. He does like abstract designs.
yes, he does as well.
I
Yes.
used to follow him. I think I
Ah.
yes, yes, Jeff Manning. That's why the name
Mm.
rang a bell. Yeah. Well, Shade, I'd like to say a very big thank you. I realized you attended Royal Holloway. I
Yes.
did my master's in Royal Holloway.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, amazing. Look at this. So
yeah,
many connections.
so many connections. Yes, when I saw Holloway, I'm like, oh, beautiful school. For those of you who don't know, we have a beautiful building there called Founders Building. And
Very beautiful.
when I worked in their education and international liaisons office and we're trying to get students to come to the school, anytime you call students in China, India, and go, what made you apply to the school? And then they'll always go, the building. And it was very, very strange. And I'm like, okay, what made me apply to the school? I think the building too.
It's beautiful, yeah. Just and it's been used in so many films that as
Yes.
a setting.
Yeah.
So but I spent 2 years living in that founders building, and behind the brick is wood, and that thing is so flammable. The fire alarm would go off all the time. You make some toast, the fire alarm is off, but at least from outside it looks gorgeous.
Okay, I lived in the what's the hall across the road, over the bridge, the postgrad halls.
Oh yes,
Yes, I
yes.
lived in one of those ones, yes, on the left. Yeah, but I lived
Okay.
on the bridge, yeah. Why am I forgetting it? Hi, it starts with a H.
Not Hither Green or
No, 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 no. Those were not, we didn't have those
okay,
ones.
further. Okay.
I was there 2004, 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can't remember. Hi, sorry, I'm trying to remember where I lived.
Oh, don't worry. I forget everything. So, but yeah, but if anyone you Google Raw Holloway
Holloway,
and
yes,
that you're still
beautiful.
building, it is very
Yeah,
pretty.
it's a
It's in where is it? Egham. It's in Egham,
it's in
just
Egham,
outside
yeah.
London.
It was used in Harry Potter. I think a clip I saw where he was flying, and I recognized that it was Founders Building in the back.
Mm.
Basic Instincts 2
Okay.
was done in the court there. In fact,
Oh
I was
yeah.
walking on that day, and I was by the window watching them shoot.
Oh
Yeah, so
wow.
at least I saw Sharon Stone. Yes,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I was there watching them, doing the filming and all of that.
I
So
think they did one of the X-Men films. They used the setting as well. So yeah, it's pretty famous.
yeah, it's a beautiful building. Well, Shade, it's amazing that after all these years, we are seeing face to face and we are actually having a conversation.
This is it. No, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a fun discussion. And thank you so much, everybody who read the book and is thinking about it or just, spread the word. But it's so nice to hear feedback because otherwise you write and you don't know what people think of it, what questions they have. And so I learned things about the book from hearing your feedback as well. So it's been such a pleasure speaking with you all.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So I'll let you go
Thank you
about
so
your
much.
Saturday.
Thank you. And I like the hairstyle.
Oh, thank you.
Got it.
Thank
Very
you.
simple, not like the white one, the white wig.
I
I'm
am
We
channeling
joking,
my
love
inner
those
Louisa.
too.
goddess
I'm
today.
joking.
A
And
plethora.
it's cute. It's cute.
Look,
It's
I've had this wig for so
it's
long.
showing our
And
royalty. It's showing.
yeah, I've had
It's
this wig for so
showing.
long and not known where
I'm
to wear it
joking.
to. And today I just
I'm
went, you know what?
teasing you,
This
Louisa.
book, yeah. So I'm gonna take a photo and I think I'll put it on Instagram. Channeling my inner goddess. Thank you, Sade, Lapite, for this.
Thank you, Shade.
Thank you,
No.
Sade.
Thank you,
So we'll let
everybody.
you
Thank you,
Young lady.
Sade.
Thank you. So
yeah.
have a lovely Saturday, everybody.
Okay, bye.